For this project, we are starting with a photo. It's good if you have a photo that have some lines, curves, or at least some perspective, but it doesn't have to be in a city or anything like this. This is taken in New York, but you can take it wherever you want, as long as you have some fun lines to work with. Before we can start any abstraction or any doodling or anything, we need to get the outlines of the part we are going to include in this drawing. We do not include everything from the picture, because that will be too much. And feel free to move things around. As you probably will see, I'm moving the arc behind me, so it comes around my head instead of me covering a part of it. So feel free to just do the adjustments you want. And as you probably saw, I was drawing with pencil before I traced it with a pen. So you're sure that you will get it the place that you want it. And you probably have to erase a few times. So did I. With the basic outline in place, we are now ready for some abstraction. I'm starting with the figure as myself. So I'm starting to divide the face into a few parts and then going on to the dress and kind of doodling. The purse is making it kind of squares, and I'm following the lines of the dress. But this is actually up to you how you want to divide it. If you are not sure, you can try a few times with a pencil and then remove it if you don't want to have it, or you can trace over it when you're happy. We will also go back to define the outlines a little bit better later. Now I'm doing the arch behind me. I think it's stones in it, so I just draw like something that represents stones. Doesn't have to be the exact same sizes or the exact same anything. I just wanted it to look like stones. And this circle, it's supposed to represent the sun, and you will see it later when I continue with it. I'm starting on the ground with some pattern that are supposed to represent the stones on the ground, but I realized that I should have followed my own example that do it with pencil first if you're not sure what to do. But I have an idea how I can fix it later, so I'll just move on and you will see the solution as well after. And then I'm going back to the figure to do some of the abstraction here. As you can see from the hair, it's not like any details or anything. It looks more like the Statue of Liberty than it does like a human person. And now I'm doing some outlines with my pen, which is actually way too thin for this. But the benefit is that I can only use one pen for the whole thing. But I'm going to use a thicker one later, I promise. So I'm just using it several times to get a thicker line instead of just going to find a thicker one. So you can actually start with a thicker one from the start and get the outlines with a thicker one. It takes much less time. But okay. What I'm doing, I'm actually doing the outlines, like the bigger shapes, I'm doing them thicker. Because of the abstraction inside of the dress, it was impossible to see what was what, and it was a big mess of lines everywhere. That's why I decided to have thicker lines to kind of show the main figure and the main outlines. But I'm doing some easy abstractions inside the dress. As you can see, I divided it into parts, and some of the lines are horizontal and some of them are vertical. So just to get some idea that it's a dress, that it's moving. And as I mentioned, on the bag it's like squares or kind of a spiral squares going up and down. And when you see me going through this, you will probably understand why I say you can start with a bigger pen from the beginning, because it's a lot of the lines that are going to be thicker, and then I would have been would be good to have a thicker line from the start. The pen I'm using is actually a uniball Signo, I think it's called, Uniball Eye. It's from Mitsubishi, if I'm not wrong. And it's actually a great pen. It can be used for everything, and I don't know how long I've had these ones. And they never go out of ink, so you have it for a very, very long time if you have it. And it's also not so delicate, so you can also draw over kind of a little bit wet surfaces without any big issues. So I love this pen, but I'm going to use a thicker one for the rest, because this takes way too long time. I'll now be continuing with the arches. I'm making a lot of small lines around the arches to represent stones. Because of the perspective, it's kind of far away, so the stones are much smaller than on the big arch we had earlier. I also do the same here. I'm making thicker line for the outline of the arches far away. Around this closest arch, I'm now drawing lines a little different directions so that it's different patterns on kind of each stone. So I'm doing that around the whole thing. And then I'm making a few more lines to kind of have arches above the arches. And then I go on and make some kind of bigger stones for the wall itself to have some kind of stone pattern. And then I continue with the rest of the wall and the arches to represent stones and trying to keep the perspective in mind. If you are not drawing stones, you have to do the same thing with whatever you are drawing. Remember that the far away will be smaller than the one who's at the front. I like to have a line around my drawing, so I kind of frame the whole thing in with a few lines, so I keep inside there. And then I also mentioned that this round thing is going to represent the sun. And so are these ones that are going to represent kind of sun rays. I'm continuing on the ground, and as I mentioned, I wasn't happy with this at all. And after doing this, I'm very sure I'm not happy with it. So I have to fix it somehow. We will find a solution later. Now I just had to do it. I just had to go and find a thicker brush or a thicker marker that I can use for the outlines, because it went too slow with the one I just used earlier. So you see, now it's really speeding up here with this thicker marker. The solution I had in mind for this area I wasn't happy about is actually collage. I love my old notebooks, so I'm using that for collage, and I don't like to have only collage one place. If I have it one place, I need to have it another place too. So I also make a small piece at the top of the drawing. I'm using matte medium to glue it down. I use it both under and over the piece. And it's important to let it dry before you continue. Then I continue with the sun rays. I only take between every second of these bigger lines, because it will be too many lines if I cover it all with that. And then I make some stones at the bottom of the ground. I don't fill the whole thing with stones, that will be too much, I think. But it's also a good thing when we do like we do just now, because now we can use the stone pattern to include the collage into the piece. We will do more of that later. But now we're just making some more pattern on the stones and also inside of the sun, as you can see. So we're now just drawing some lines in different directions in some of the stones. You don't have to cover them all, because that will be too busy. So just take a few of them. That's also what we're doing at the bottom. We are not covering the whole thing, but we are continuing the big lines down to the notebook that I collaged on. And also some of the stones are also being drawn in there. So you can see that the notebook is kind of being more implemented into the drawing. This is what we're doing just now, making the stones kind of going from one paper to the other. I now got myself a cup of tea. I'm not going to drink it, but I'm going to paint with it. I'm painting the sun rays and some of the stones. Try not to paint them all, that will be too much, but try to keep a decent amount of the painting to the same color as it was, like white or whatever you had in your painting. My paper was actually not completely white, it was a little bit yellow accent to it. So I'm also painting the outside of the line we drew around the drawing, so I kind of have an darker edge around the whole thing. So as you understand, it's important to use a waterproof marker when you draw the black stuff. I probably didn't mention it before, but it's quite important that it was waterproof, otherwise you would be smearing out the whole thing just now. And when it comes to tea, it's not like watercolor or different kind of mediums, because like watercolor, it will dry much lighter, but tea has the opposite effect. It will dry darker. So it will actually be darker when it dries than it is when it's wet. So let's see how it is. Now you can see the final result dry, and you can compare to the original drawing. I hope you enjoyed it and that you would like to try for yourself. And if you do, please just like and subscribe, and I will be back with more interesting content every Thursday.